Good morning, everyone. Well, thank you first to Fede for the very warm introduction. I hope you guys feel caffeinated and are ready to have a good dialogue. My hope for this session was to talk for about 10 minutes or so up front, and then be able to have a Q&A with you all about some of the pressing issues that we all face. So as Fede mentioned, my name's Andy Ravens, and I'm the Special Advisor for Global Youth Issues at the U.S. Department of State, based in Washington, D.C. And I mentioned to Fede earlier, but I'm incredibly excited to be with you all today, with a number of young leaders, a few hundred, I think, from 32 states across Mexico. I got to meet a handful of the young leaders in this room, actually, a few months back, when they were in Washington, D.C. with a HENEM delegation. I remember Fede gave me a call and said he was in town and would love to meet at the State Department. And when I went down to meet him, I thought it was just going to be Fede and maybe one or two others. And it turned out to be a delegation of about 20 plus HENEM leaders, all with very important leadership roles in the organization. And even though this was our first time to meet in person, it felt like talking to old friends who shared a similar view about the world and a similar passion for empowering youth voices. So today, in honor of the Mexico 2050 theme of this summit, I want to focus my brief remarks on the future as it could be for Mexico. And more importantly, a future as it could be for the relationship between Mexico and the United States. A future full of greater partnership, of greater opportunity, and of greater collaboration built from bridges rather than walls. But before I jump into discussing the future, thank you. Before I jump into touching on the future, I want to touch briefly on the past. Because the relationship between Mexico and the United States, for me, is a relationship that's far greater than a political relationship. It's deeply personal. My family is connected to Mexico. My uncle married an amazing woman from a tiny town in Sonora called Cibuta. And their daughter, my cousin Andrea, just had a pretty exuberant and exciting quinceañera in Tucson, Arizona, just a few months ago. And I've had the opportunity to experience Mexico firsthand. It was the first place that I ever visited on my own outside of the United States. When I finished my first year of college back in 2002, my uncle, who had spent many years as a reporter in Mexico, sent me on a bus to Hermosillo. Anyone here from Hermosillo? Okay, good. We got at least one. When my uncle sent me on the bus, he told me, don't write, don't call. This was before the time of WhatsApp and FaceTime. And he set me up with a couple of different families to stay with and convinced me this would be a great opportunity to meet some of the people in Mexico and to get a taste of culture and politics. And on that trip, I remember being struck by the warmth of the people talking late into the nights over tecates and extra syrupy Coca-Colas, and seeing firsthand the striking similarities between young people in Mexico and young people in the United States. When I took a role as the Special Advisor for Global Youth Issues about 18 months ago, it was very important to me that my first official visit was back to Mexico, where I got to spend time about 18 months ago here in Mexico City for our first ever U.S. Embassy-sponsored Youth Council Summit, where we convened about 100 leaders from our 6 chapters across the country. We have 9 today. And I also got to spend a handful of days in Ciudad Juarez and get a deeper understanding of some of the challenges faced in communities outside of the capital. Anyone here travel from Juarez? Good, amazing. I remember being particularly moved by the time in Juarez and the young people I met there, who I believe exemplified incredible leadership in the face of adversity, pushing forward their ideas in positive change amidst very challenging conditions. The number one of which I remember being speaking out against corruption. Seeing Mexico and its people firsthand has given me a much deeper understanding and appreciation for the warmth, the culture, and the people who reside here. But the unfortunate reality today is that far too few Americans and far too few Mexicans have the opportunity to travel and to see one another's countries firsthand, or developing meaningful relationships with each other, developing meaningful relationships around shared values, aspirations, and common interests that exist between our two countries. Far too many Americans and far too many Mexicans put up invisible walls towards one another, built from dangerous stereotypes and misconceptions about each other's motivations and interests. And these dangerous stereotypes and misperceptions run the risk of becoming real walls if we don't work collectively to break them down. So 2050 could be a moment of real struggle for this relationship if we don't work collectively to break down those invisible walls and try to address some of the misperceptions and stereotypes that we have. Or 2050 could also be a moment of celebration for the Mexican and American relationship, if we can find ways to build more bridges and reshape the way that we see and interact with each other. And it's up to us, to the young leaders in this room and some of the young leaders who are outside of this room, to shape that positive future as it could be. So I want to take a quick minute to touch on Mexico in 2050. A Mexico built on economic opportunity, on empowered voices, and on bridges with partners. A Mexico where youth are free of fear and full of opportunity. So if you'll just bear with me, everyone close your eyes for a quick minute. Close your eyes and picture the year 2050. Picture the year. You're moving down the streets of Mexico City in your self-driving car, on your way to a meeting by hologram with counterparts from San Francisco. Your robotic assistant is called and orders you a coffee from Starbucks to be delivered by drone to your car. And you're feeling good about the day ahead. The domestic economy is booming. Economic opportunities are plentiful. And Mexicans are proud of the way they're seen internationally in playing a positive, dynamic role on the world stage. And most importantly, young Mexicans feel empowered and full of opportunity. Opportunity to raise their voices, to find a decent job, to build bridges, and connect with international friends and partners. Now, there's a concept in the United States of an American dream. It's centered around this idea that if you're willing to work hard and play by the rules, you can achieve success in your own life and provide your kids with even greater opportunities than you had. It's an ethos that draws immigrants from around the world to our shores, and it inspires many Americans to achieve success through hard work. But the reality is that the United States doesn't have a monopoly over the concept behind an American dream. When we think about the future of Mexico in 2050, there's no reason that there can't be a Mexican dream in place, connected to Mexican ideals, some of which include family, honesty, an entrepreneurial spirit, as you heard Fede and others talk about earlier, that further enables opportunity and upward mobility to exist through hard work and determination. And there's no reason that Mexico can't be that magnetic force for the region, but also the world at large, that attracts investment and knowledge to its shores by providing immense opportunities and social mobilities to anyone who wants to come. And again, it's going to be up to folks in this room and outside of the room to shape what that Mexican dream looks like and how it connects to Mexican values. And also a powerful vision of Mexico in 2050. So in closing, I've got 3 asks for the group. First ask, continue to use your voices, but more importantly, continue to be willing to lead. each and every person in this room, we need you to speak up, even when you're afraid your voice won't be counted or listened to. And we need you to step up and get engaged on the issues in your communities that you actually care about, that touch you on a deeper level. Number 2, craft that Mexican dream. In the United States, we have a collective belief in an American dream. But what does that vision look like right here in Mexico? A vision that inspires people to make the most of their talents, to feel like they can stay put, and that brings immigration from all over the globe to its shores. And third, continue to build bridges, not walls, with one another and with others across the globe. The future is moving in a much more interconnected direction. So the onus is on us to embrace this interconnectivity and use it as a means to further break down stereotypes and misperceptions. You can tap into some of the great resources and exchange programs that the U.S. Embassy offers through the Benjamin Franklin Library, American Spaces across Mexico, through cost-free education advising with Education USA, through the prestigious Fulbright Garcia Robles scholarships, but also look for additional opportunities to better expose yourselves to the larger world that we live in. And most importantly, to interact with people who think differently, act differently, look differently, and sound differently than you do. So in closing, I'm actually really excited and optimistic about what 2050 holds for Mexico. And I'm excited about what 2050 holds for the United States. And I'm excited for what 2050 holds for that relationship between us and for the larger world as a whole. And I'm confident that by working together, we'll find meaningful ways to knock down those invisible walls that currently exist and to build even stronger bridges going forward. So thank you guys so much for the time, and I look forward to a little question and answer. I think we have a mic or two, and if anyone wants to, you can either stand up, introduce yourself, and yell, or you can feel free to use a mic.
Hello. Nos vamos con 3 preguntas por acá. ¿Quién? A ver acá.
Well, thank you so much. I would like to know what is your vision about this new world order, and which is our participation as a young people.
Great. What's your name?
My name is Isaac.
Isaac.
Yeah.
So I think the question was kind of what's the vision for this new world order? I think I touched a little bit on it in the remarks, but I think that how many folks here are on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, WhatsApp? How many folks talk to someone overseas on a daily basis? How about weekly basis? Monthly basis? Pretty darn good. So the vision, I think, is the fact that we're more interconnected and we have more, I think, as young people globally, more power at our fingertips with our smartphones than any generation before us. And you've heard that some of the generations before us have had that passion, as you heard earlier, and been able to mobilize one another to tackle some of the big challenges. So I feel like my vision, and I think it's probably a shared vision, is tapping into that interconnectivity that exists and tapping into that passion that we know is there and figuring out a way to try to build some serious power to push forward on some of our complex challenges. But really kind of embrace the sense of globalization, interconnectivity, and the fact that a lot of young people are facing similar challenges, whether it be in Mexico, whether it be in parts of the Middle East, whether it be in the United States, whether it be outside in Africa. What else?
Hi.
Please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming. I'm Laura, I'm from Juarez. And well, as you know, as you yourself said, Juarez has been through a very tough situation and everything. So I appreciate you taking the time to visit us here in Mexico. My question is regarding a little bit the elections. As we all know, obviously the U.S. is going to have elections pretty soon. What can we as Mexicans do? I know it's maybe like a weird or I don't know question, but what can we do to change the perception that a lot of Americans or U.S. citizens have now because of, as we all know, Trump and that idea going on? So what can we do as young Mexicans? I don't know if that's a question you could answer.
Great question. Great question. I think it's on a lot of minds right now about kind of some of these misperceptions and stereotypes bubbling up to the surface, both on, I think, the American side and also on the Mexican side. And I think that there are invisible walls, kind of these stereotypes and misperceptions that unfortunately do exist and existed, frankly, much prior than the current presidential election in the United States. So I think that what we need to do is figure out ways to raise up the positive stories of what young Mexicans are doing and what young Americans are doing, and encourage people to have greater interaction with one another so that we can kind of fan the flames of the positive stuff that's happening in both of our communities and countries. And also build on some of those relationships so that when someone does kind of come back with one of those ridiculous, dangerous stereotypes on either side, you have kind of the social media networks and everyone else collapsing and commenting and really pouncing on those misperceptions and stereotypes to paint a proper picture of where things are. And I think that over time is going to start creating a much better image and relationship between both of our countries, which I think we already actually have when you look at the numbers and trade and exchanges and partnerships. So I think it's just trying to paint that image of the positive stories that exist.
Hi. I would like to know what are the principal concerns in the American youth. Here there are many leaders from all the country. What do you think are the principal concerns in the youth, and what bridges do you think we can build between our people, young people, and the American young people?
Good question. I think there are a number. We're not at all in any way perfect in the United States, and we're struggling with a lot of issues that young Americans face. One kind of first and foremost, I think, which a lot of people here are connected with, is that sense of making sure your voice is heard in the political process and making pathways for young people to feel that they can actually run for office and affect the political process both from the inside and also from the outside, whether it be in civil society, in an NGO, in the private sector as entrepreneurs. So I think really kind of issue number one is making young people feel more engaged and that they have a voice at the political table. And I think similarly here, how can we better connect young people who are looking to enter into politics with American counterparts who are trying to tackle some of the same issues and challenges around those spaces. I think we struggle as well with issues around inclusivity. I think there's been a number of issues over the last couple of years around embracing diversity in the United States, and certain communities feeling like they're not fully accepted. And I think that's something that we struggle with in the US and are doing better at, but I think is also something that's probably shared in Mexico and frankly globally. And that the idea of the lottery of birth, this idea of where you happen to be born, that not determining what you can do with your life. That regardless if you're born into a rich or poor family, if you're born into a particular part of the country, then you can make the most of your talents. And painting a vision that allows young people to feel that regardless of the lottery of birth, they can still kind of make the most of their talents in life. So those are two of the big ones. Women's empowerment is another huge one. Getting young people to feel more engaged in the international space is another one. So a whole slew of different issues. Anything else? We good? Okay, well, thank you guys so much, and I look forward to engaging the rest of the day.